Don't move here. Let me explain. Welcome back to our channel, Living in Pensacola. On this channel, we often cover the reasons why you should move to the Pensacola area, but today we're going to talk about the top 7 reasons why you might second guess that decision. Let's talk heat and humidity. This is something that Floridians often complain about, and it's just a fact of life here. But the environment and the weather is often akin to the Amazon rainforest. It's hot, it's sticky, it's muggy, it's wet, and you just have to be prepared for it, you know? A lot of women complain about, not being able to keep their hair done. You get sweatier and wetter. It often does dehydrate you more. You sweat more, you lose more moisture, so you have to be more hydrated. It is great for growing tropical plants, which is a plus side. But if you're not a fan of hot, wet, and sticky, this may not be a good option for you. In the early to mid 1900s, Pensacola decided to form a new industry that would help it thrive after a couple of failed attempts at some other areas. And that industry was tourism. Anybody that travels here or has lived here will tell you that Pensacola is built on tourism. It hasn't really changed. Now, there are other industries that have come into the area, but tourism is what helps us thrive. So every year in the summer months, pretty much anywhere from like April, May to August, September, there's a huge rush of people that come here. But that also rings true for certain events that we have. The Blue Angels shows, Mardi Gras, Memorial Day. You're gonna see the amount of people increase. You're gonna see the hotel stays and Airbnb stays increase. And so it's just something that we have to deal with here. If you're not a big fan of the traffic, you can find other places to go, other things to do during those times. But some people actually enjoy it because it does bring more people to the area, so it's more opportunity to socialize. And as beautiful as Pensacola and the surrounding area is, when it comes to the job market, we're not necessarily first in the race and highest in pay. And it's an unfortunate thing that we deal with here, but on average, industries like healthcare and teacher salaries and major popular jobs like that see about 30% less in income than other areas in the country now. Don't ask me why, I'm not really sure, but I will say that most people don't move here for their jobs unless you're in the military or perhaps healthcare. Most people move here for the scenery. So while the pay on average might be less for jobs here than other areas, you do have the beaches and the rivers and all of the beautiful scenery that comes along with living here. One of the first things that you'll hear people ask about when they think about moving to Florida, or when they hear you're moving to Florida, is like, aren't you worried about hurricanes? And why, yes, you do have to be worried about hurricanes, but there's natural disasters in any part of the world that you live in, and it's just the kind that we deal with here. That being said, we do only deal with major storms every 10 to 20 years. We did just have a Hurricane Sally, about 4 years ago now, and it wasn't as strong as, say, Hurricane Ivan in 2004, but it had been about that long since we'd experienced a big storm like that. So while they do happen, they don't happen all that often, and you just prepare for them. You make sure you have your hurricane kit, you make sure you have your hurricane and your flood insurance, and just be aware. Be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your routes, and just know if it's anything over like a Cat 2 or 3, it's usually a good idea to just go ahead and leave. Back in the day, people would stay for Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricanes, but the storms, they seem different now than they used to be. Even when they're not that strong, Hurricane Sally was not a super strong hurricane in terms of categories, but it battered us for like 24 straight hours with wind and rain. And some people really experienced a lot of damage from that, and it can be kind of scary and kind of traumatizing. I personally sat in the hallway of my house, down the middle of my house with my kids for about 12 hours of that, just listening to the rain and the wind and just waiting for my roof to get ripped off, which thankfully didn't happen. So it's just best to leave. And material possessions can be replaced, but your life can't. If you want to know a little bit more of what to expect and how to prepare for a hurricane, we actually have a video on that. So you can click this right here and go watch that video. Now this one also has to do with heat and humidity, and it is allergies. Now, when we moved down here from Memphis, Tennessee, I was getting almost weekly allergy shots when we lived up here. And when we came down here, my allergies seemed to get better, but over the years, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or maybe things like are getting hotter, but my allergies have increased, and you often hear that complaint a lot from people in this area is how bad the seasonal allergies can be. And from what I've learned, when the humidity is really high, the moisture in the air will carry those allergies further, and they'll just kind of, hang out in the air, I guess, and it makes them worse. So maybe if you're someone who lives in like a more dry, arid area, you can tell me if that seems true for you, if maybe allergies aren't as bad there. But that is what I've heard, and it seems to be true because nowadays I deal with some pretty bad seasonal allergies, and I do hear that a lot from people that I know. And so if you're someone who deals with allergies, you might want to do some research and see how you might kind of get ahead of that if you're thinking about moving here. I currently do not get allergy shots, but I do have to take some sort of allergy, medicine certain times of year because I am allergic to certain trees and certain grasses. But just keep that in mind when moving here. Again, I don't think it's going to deter anyone. It's just something that you have to deal with. Oh my God, that water is so dark. Aren't you afraid of alligators? I hear that all the time. I love posting pictures of when we go and visit, different springs and creeks and rivers, and people that don't live here, my friends, like on Facebook or Instagram, they'll always be like, oh my God, aren't you afraid of gators? It's like, no, not where I go, because I'm not gonna go where there's gonna be gators. But we do have a lot of critters here in Florida, and we do have a lot of bugs here in Florida. And if you've ever been to the South, you probably know this already. But again, the heat and the humidity kind of contribute to this thriving, environment of bugs and critters. We have a lot of mosquitoes, we have a lot of cockroaches, we have a lot of snakes, we have a lot of all of those kind of creepy crawlies. And yes, there are alligators. It's part of life here, but they don't tend to like moving water. So I feel like you're safe going to the river, bays, estuaries, bayous, lakes, that sort of thing. Yeah, you have to worry about that. In fact, I find it so funny when I watch TV and videos of people in other areas of the world or even up north, when I see them like diving into a dark lake, I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember, oh, that's right. They don't have alligators there. So it's kind of funny how you get sort of like used to it and sort of traumatized by it in a way. But you just learn to avoid certain areas where you know they're going to be. In fact, down the road from my house, I know I've talked about this before in a couple of videos, but we have a park called Florida Town Park, and I love going there. In fact, the water is not like super clean, and that's a story for another day. But my kids have gotten in it before, build their immune systems or whatever. But we started hearing about more alligator sightings in the area. The water is really shallow and it's usually pretty calm. And as soon as we started hearing about this uptick of gator sightings in the area, we just stopped going in the water or near the water. It's just as simple as that. So as much as there's a lot of creepy crawlies here, I pay for quarterly pest control at my house to help care for that. There's just certain things you can do around your property to keep the critters down, trimming brush and keeping your landscaping away from your house is a good way to do that. There's just things that you can do to mitigate that. It's just, again, part of living here, and it definitely doesn't take away from the beautiful scenery, and definitely didn't deter us from moving here, that's for sure. And oh my gosh, I almost forgot about the love bugs. If you live here, comment below. I know you know what this is like. If you don't know what love bugs are, just wait for love bug season. That's all I have to say. Maybe we can put up a video here that will show you what that looks like, because there really is no words to explain it. You just have to experience it for yourself. Now, this one is one of the reasons why we made this entire video, because people have been begging us to address this, and it is something that needs to be brought up and is another just unfortunate side effect of living in Florida. You've probably heard about it, but it's the high insurance costs, not just home insurance, but also car insurance. in the last few years, there has been a huge spike in the cost of insurance. And I really hope that something is going to be done about it because it's literally gotten out of hand. But again, it's just something that you have to deal with here. And it comes from all the claims that have been filed in recent years, both for home and for auto. In fact, when I was searching for auto insurance about a year ago, I was told directly by an insurance agent that the higher cost of insurance for me here directly had to do with the amount of claims that had been filed in this area. So it is what it is. It's the same with home insurance. You know, there have been a ton of storms that have hit Florida and a ton of claims, and there's just not enough oversight for these insurance companies to manage the raises in, you know, insurance costs, insurance premiums. While I don't necessarily agree with that, until something is done about it, it is just, you know, something that we have to deal with here. Does it deter people? No, I don't think so. If people who really want to move here or obviously are getting stationed here, getting a job here, it's not going to deter you. Is it something that you have to factor in when looking for a home? Absolutely. It might affect how much home you can afford. You may have to come in a little under that to make sure you can make those extra premiums. You know, we do have people that say, I moved here because I thought it was going to be less expensive. And while the price of the home was less expensive, now with the cost of insurance, it's about the same as they were paying before. So just keep that in mind. Until those things change, it is just something that we're dealing with here. And this one, I cannot make this video without addressing this because it comes up all the time on the internet, on social media, in our group, Welcome to Pace Florida. If you're not a member there and you're thinking about moving to Pace, go join that. We'll put a link in the description below. But it's traffic. Okay, we're gonna address it, okay? Just stick with me here. People often complain about how bad the traffic has gotten, in Pace specifically. Now, it has increased pretty much everywhere in the Pensacola area, but we live in Pace, so we mostly experience it here in Pace. And while it has definitely increased, you know, a lot, especially since 1998, but even just in the last 4 to 5 years, it's still not as bad as, say, like Atlanta or Birmingham or other big cities. So if you're someone that's lived in places like that, more metropolitan areas, you're gonna probably laugh because it's nothing like that. But for people who have lived here for a while and are trying to adjust to the new changes, or maybe you come from a smaller town, a smaller area, you know, it might be a little bit more than you're used to. Now, I will say that there's something that kind of like occurred to me a couple of months ago, and it makes me laugh because when I first started driving here, you know, there were virtually like no traffic lights. There was virtually no traffic. You could get from Pace to Milton in like 10 minutes, just straight shoot. It's a little bit different now. You really have to plan, and I have to remind myself of that sometimes, that when I'm leaving to go somewhere, I have to put an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes on my travel time now. And so it's something I've had to adjust to. But my husband was laughing at me one day when we were driving because I was trying to switch lanes and I wasn't using my turn signal. And before you come for me about using turn signals, let me tell you why I wasn't. So up until recently, when switching lanes, and yes, I do use my turn signal when I switch lanes, but I never had to look to see if there was anyone there. I mean, of course I would, but there was never anyone there years ago when I would go to switch lanes. The turn signal was just a courtesy, okay? It was, oh, look at me, I'm obeying the law, okay? Nowadays, I have to fight my way over into traffic to switch lanes. I have to think about my turn like a mile before I'm gonna get there. 5 years ago, you didn't have to do that. You wanted to switch lanes, you needed to make a turn, you just bloop, 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 and just get over. You make sure there's no one there. There's gonna be no one there. There was no one there. And you just get over and you go about your day. Now you actually have to plan for that. So that's something kind of funny that occurred to me, and I finally, it made sense to me, and I was able to explain that to my husband, who's from Atlanta. So, you know, he grew up with that kind of traffic. But it was funny to me. I mean, it's happened on the interstate too. You know, driving down the interstate, it used to just be like a little, okay, no one's there, bloop, 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 get over. And now it's like, oh crap, there's 10 cars and no one's gonna let me over because the drivers here are kind of rude. So you got to put that blinker on and you got to kind of work your way over. So, you know, while the traffic is different, and yes, drivers are rude, we have a melting pot of people from all over the world because of the military base and the tourism. And so you just have to learn to be a little bit of a defensive driver and just be a little bit more aware on the road. That's all. So despite everything that you've heard here today, we still think that the Pensacola, Florida area is a great place to live. There's so much fun to be had here. There's so much to see, especially if you're an outdoor enthusiast, which we cover a lot of. And there's a lot of rich history here too. And there's a lot of efforts to preserve not only the beauty of the nature here, but also the local history. So we hope none of these things actually deter you, but you know, if you're not a fan of some of them, at least now you know. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps us out. And if you're not subscribed yet, why the heck not? Go hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Now, I'm Jaime Walker and I'm with the Living in Pensacola group, and we get calls from people just like you all the time who are moving here or getting stationed here. And whether that's in 7 days or 70 days, we can help. So you can send us a text, you can shoot us an email, or you can schedule a Zoom so we can see your face. We'd love to help you make a smooth move to the Pensacola area. So until next time, bye-bye.